Hello and welcome back to another one. Willis's World here, and today I am going to be going over a little surprise twab that came up 6-7 hours ago. I didn't know it came out until I saw that someone else had posted about it. Did not watch their video, so everything to me was a surprise. And there's some interesting changes. But getting into it, they're talking about how, with the introduction of stasis and the strand, there's already 3.0 verbs attached to these supers, like the slows, the freezes, the unravels, the threadlings, the severs. All of these verbs are already in the supers. The light subclasses didn't have that, so they're integrating that into it, as well as fine-tuning a lot of the abilities to compensate with that. Overall, though, a lot of it's just buffs. But going into what it's going to be all doing. With Season 21's ability tuning pass, these are our high-level goals. Increase viability of roaming supers in high-difficulty PvE content. They definitely did that. Incorporate subclass keywords into a selection of light subclass supers. They did that. Reduce the amount of unlimited uptime mobility available in the Crucible. To a point, they did that. Warlock and Hunter are still going to have a pretty easy time doing it, but Titan got hit a little harder. And increase build crafting capabilities of a selection of stasis and light subclass aspects. Yep. And let's get into it. The fragment budget review. A lot of this info stuff I'm just going to be skipping over up until what the description of what they actually did was. So, skipping over all that down to what's shown. Increase the fragment slot increase the fragment slot allotment for the following aspects from 1 fragment to 2 fragments. This is going to be making it so that your builds are going to have that much more variation, because now you won't be restricted in what you can add to use these fragments. And that's going to be Trapper's Ambush, Shatter Dive, Gunpowder Gamble, Bastion, Juggernaut, and Chaos Accelerant. Basically, to go over what all of these do. The Trapper's Ambush is on Void. It will basically give an extra action to your melee to consume it, rather than just your little throwable poof that weakens things. It will now, when you get close to it, detonate, leave a smoke bomb, make allies invisible, make enemies, I think it was weakened, and it's just a overall better melee. Honestly, it's a great fragment, but because it was one before, you would take the others because you need more fragments for more variations to the build. The Shatter Dive, not gonna lie, I've always hated this thing. I've been killed by it so many times in PvP, and it getting 2 fragment slots is just gonna be all the more common. Basically, you can throw crystals down near an enemy, activate the Shatter Dive, and it will instantly detonate all crystals. Normally, you'd have to destroy them one by one, get a little bit of damage on them, and whittle them down. Shatter Dive just made it so you detonated all of them instant and did a lot of damage to them. But that's going to be easier to plug into your builds. Gunpowder Gamble. You get solar kills, build up 6 charges from kills, throw this thing out. That's basically a alternate grenade. It will land where you throw it or be in midair. You shoot it, it explodes. It's basically another grenade. And it does count as an ability. So for any of you guys that are using something like the I think it's Young Ankara's. It's an exotic for hunters that makes it so that your trip mine energy regens off of ability damage. Gunpowder Gamble will count as another ability, so just letting all you guys know that when it damages an enemy, it will work with those and make it so that you're getting your trip mines back more often. The Bastion, I am excited for this one. This will make it so that you can get this overshield crap. A lot of boosts with the overshield. And you're going to... This was already one of those things that it was worth taking the fragment away to get the effect. Now that it's getting that other thing, the other fragment slot, it's basically going to be a mainstay fragment in my mind. You cannot run a Void Titan without using that from now on, in my mind. But that's personal opinion. The Juggernaut was never really all that great. You sprint for a minute, you get a shield. I only ever used it in PvP when I was using a glaive. Granted, it pissed people off because you can get right up in their face with a glaive, and because of the overshield, there's not much they can do about it. The Warlock Chaos Accelerant is one of those, just like Bastion, where it was strong enough that it was worth losing out on the fragment slot. Now it's just going to become all the more viable. However, the other aspects for Void Warlock are also strong enough that I don't think I'll really be changing much. The super tuning updates. All supers are getting 20% damage resist in PvE. That's already massive. If you've ever popped your super in a boss fight because you were about to die, and they still killed you through your super, this may stop that from happening. The Hunter's Golden Guns, both of them are getting a 20% PvE damage buff. That is nice, but there's really only one case I'm seeing that this might break the game a little bit, and that's Celestial Nighthawk. Because I'm wondering if that's going to be damage scaling 20% per bullet that it would be consuming into the one, or just 20% to the base bullet. The Arc Staff 20% damage buff. Not really much that can break the game with it, but it's nice consistent buff. Spectral Blades. Gwizzen Vest. I'm going to be hating you guys in PvP, just letting you guys know that, but in PvE, I'll be loving you, because you're going to be inflicting that weaken debuff, buffing my damage, but also doing a lot more damage consistently than a Mobius Quiver. And don't get me wrong, Mobius Quiver will still have the better burst, but Spectral Blades is going to be way up there in sustain now, because you're getting a latch on weaken to a super, buffing the damage of said super, and that super already is getting the 35% damage buff. It's going to be hitting like a train. The Gathering Storm. PvE players, you're not going to see any change to this. PvP players, yeah, get ready. This is going to be a nightmare. You're no longer going to be safe from it when you pop a bubble or a Well of Radiance. This is going to be a one-shot just about any time you see it. So, yay. But it's getting the impact damage increased from 200 to 300. So, another little trick that I was doing to survive these. The Icefall Mantles. You get the overshield from Icefall. You can literally brute force a Gathering Storm thrown right at you. You can no longer do that. Delayed lightning strike damage versus players increased from 300 to 500. Yet, once again, Icefall Mantles will not save you anymore. The lingering lightning tick increased in damage from 40 to 60. Yeah. You get close to this thing, it's going to be killing you faster. And it now deals increased damage versus Well of Radiance and Ward of Dawn. Basically, they throw the super at you when you're in either of those. Not only are they destroying the super, because it's already doing ridiculous amounts of damage. I think the amount of health that a Ward of Dawn has, I believe, was reduced to, I think it was like 1250 health. It used to be at 3000, but it got reduced drastically to make it so that it was more viable. So this super, with the boosted damage to that, and all the damage boost it's already getting to everything else, it should be within like a few seconds taking down a Ward of Dawn, which is absurd. And the Well of Radiance, you don't even have to throw it at the well itself. You throw it at the enemies that are near it, your Arc Staff will destroy the well for you. It's going to be ridiculous. The Titan's Fists of Havoc is just going to be able to last a lot longer due to cost reductions for light and heavy attacks. The heavy attacks will be doing 33% more damage, as well as anything near the center of their little circles that they're making get a progressively worse blind. The Glacial Quake, its light attacks are getting faster. You heavy attack spammers, keep doing what you're doing. Light attacks are just getting a little faster, meaning you can get to where you're wanting to go faster and get those heavy attacks down where you wouldn't be able to get it done before. Or if you're the PvP player, you can just spam the light and get through enemies and consume a lot less super energy. Either way is viable. The Sentinel Shield got a 20% damage buff in PvE. PvP, you won't be seeing any changes. Hammer of Soul, no PvP changes. Burning Maul, no PvP changes, but both of them got a 10% PvE buff. And Burning Maul will now create a sunspot on cast when Soul Invictus is equipped, just like the Hammer of Soul. But here's the thing about Burning Maul that caught my attention. The little hurricanes of fire it's making will now be scorching targets, which means ignitions, which means it may actually output more DPS than the Hammer of Souls now. It's is going to be hitting like a train. The Warlock. Oh boy. This is going to be my main class once I get back on. The amount of changes that have come to it and the buffs they are getting to their exotics. I don't think I'm going to be playing much of any other subclass or class. But Nova Warp, 15% damage buff, great, but fully charged attacks make all nearby enemies volatile. That is going to be ridiculous for ad clear. It was already really strong because you could hit all these enemies all at once. Now it's going to be a, hey, I'm going to do this, use the fragment that makes enemies explode when they die, and because I did that, just because why not, these guys are going to have volatile as well. So every time something dies to it, they explode and set off the volatile, which it then explodes. Volatile counts as an ability. Volatile kills something, it explodes. A single cast of this could clear out an entire room. It's going to be ridiculous. The Nova Bomb got a 20% damage buff. Honestly, from watching Aztec's damage testing on supers, credit to him on that. I'm not claiming anything from that, but from his results, Nova Bomb was one of the least damaging supers when paired with exotics that boost them. So, getting a 20% buff, that's nice and all, but I still don't think that's going to compare to where every other damaging super in the game is going to be at this point. If it was just the 20% buff and no other supers were getting buffed, Nova Bomb might be on par with everything else. But since everything else got buffed and it got buffed, I feel like it's still going to be behind. Don't get me wrong, it's going to be doing more damage than it is now, but it's not going to be the highest damage you can get out of a super. Which not all supers are made for that. Don't get me wrong. Nova Bomb is still a nice back burner damage while you have everything else going on. I've made builds using it. The Storm Trance getting a 25% PvE damage. Damage ramp will now occur every 3 seconds instead of 5. That's already going to be really nice. And the landfall detonations and seekers will now jolt targets. Your chain lightning super is going to be chaining more lightning. So get ready for that. That's going to be quite a bit of damage, and I'm intrigued by it because Storm Dancers, exotic people, you're going to have such a fun super. Chaos Reach. Same situation as Storm Trance, but with a different exotic. Geomag people, you're going to love this. It got a 25% damage buff. Great. Sustained fire on a single target now creates a jolting lightning strike. From what I'm seeing, jolting lightning strike means it won't just be the target getting jolted. It'll create a lightning strike that jolts. And if that's anything like the lightning strike from the Thunder Lord, oh, dude, Chaos Reach is about to have a bit of a nuclear fall off of lightning strikes off of the main target when you're fighting a boss or a champion, and you're just laying into them. It's going to be doing so much. And then increased the damage resist from players from 40% to 50%. So you're going to be able to get this super and get kills a little easier in PvP than you would before. Watch out. Once again, Geomags are going to be scary. And that jolt being attached now, and that lightning strike, I really hope you follow the YouTuber TDT saying and don't bunch up. Because, you bunch up, this super will kill your entire team. Just letting you guys know. Winter's Wrath, PvE damage buffed by 10%. It's already solid. Daybreak, getting a camera fix. Strand tunings. Threaded Spike. Overall, not one of the greatest melees, but due to these changes, may actually really do some damage, especially with the right things equipped. And a particular build that was found that I think is going to be ridiculous with it. The Gambler's Dodge with its melee refresh paired with the Radiant Dance Machines and this melee, you're going to be able to get so many of these knives out, and every time you do successfully catch one of these knives, you're getting energy back, and you can throw it out again. And as long as you're near an enemy, the Radiant Dance Machines will let you dodge again and throw another melee. So, you do that, melee final blows make an Orb of Power, and picking up an Orb of Power heals you. Yeah, that build just got a massive 55% damage buff to it, as well as the ability to puncture Cabal shields, and then just overall beyond that, better ease of life stuff. And it no longer overrides grapple melees. So, yeah, dude, if you have them, use Radiant Dance Machines. You utilize the mod that using your class ability near targets refreshes all ability cooldowns. You use the Gambler's Dodge. You're going to be able to throw out your melees, get your melees constantly ricocheting, just make a freaking knife pool in a group of enemies. They're constantly returning. You catch them, they're getting a energy boost on top of what it used to be now, so it's more than likely you'll be able to throw it right back out. So you're going to be able to spam knives like crazy. They're now doing a lot more damage in PvE and pierce Cabal shields, which means it's no longer going to go bounce through a group, hit a shield, then just fall, and you never get it back. So, hunters out there, if you have Radiant Dance Machines, enjoy them, and also know I envy you, because they're going to be crazy with this change. The Titan and Warlock both got this buff to their melee charges on Strand. Once you consume a charge, if you have 2 charges left after that third charge is consumed, that third charge will regen with a 30% increased rate. You use 2 charges and have that 1 charge left, that will leave you with a 15% recharge rate. So it's going to kind of incentivize you to stagger the amount you're using your melees, because less you're using your melee, but using 1 charge, it will increase the rate that your melee recharges and you get them back. So that's going to be a fun little tidbit there. But the Warlock is getting extra buffs with that, and it's just going to be velocity increased to their melee. Longer it's in the air, the faster it travels. It also got tracking strength increased. Another big change, grapple melees. I already main this grenade. And sorry that I said grapple melee, it's the reason why I main it. It's called grapple. It's supposed to be a mobility grenade. But with that mobility, you can activate your melee button and do a big melee into them. You utilize the threadling creation off of a grapple melee. You've got 3 threadlings made off of a grapple. You deal damage, you get it back. But it's getting its cooldown reduced from 105 seconds to 82 seconds. And that's for base cooldown. That's if you have 0 discipline. It will be an 82-second cooldown. Which means that if it goes at the same rate that it used to, down to its tier 10 cooldown, this could be a 10 or 11-second cooldown grenade. And that's before Thread of Generation recharging a bit of the energy every time you deal damage. So, I'm excited for that grapple change. And then grapple activations being able to be done that much quicker. Also quite excited for that, because that means that I can go in, grapple onto an enemy, grapple melee them, create my threadlings, grapple away from them, keep my eye on my grapple, roundabout, come back to them, and punch them again and get more threadlings, and it's just going to be overall better DPS with it. And then Thread of Generation, speaking of the devil, reduce energy generation provided by some damage over time mechanics. All you Osteo lovers, or Lemon Arc lovers, or Thorn lovers, and all these other weapons that deal dot damages, they are going to be generating less grenade energy than it used to, because it was ridiculous. Like, you could, in the Thrallway, kill a single enemy with the Osteo, get the poison on 4 targets, and you would be able to spam your grenade. It was absurd. And then stasis tuning. The Hunter melee is going to have better targeting, as well as distance between bounces. So, yeah, it's going to be even harder to dodge in PvP, and in PvE it's just going to be making it so that you're less likely to whiff it. Kind of like Hammer, which they also fixed. I'm so excited for that, which I'll also be getting into. here in a bit once it gets to solar. Getting ahead of myself. Titan. The Shiver Strike. Maximum thrust while in flight increased by 16%. You're going to be moving even faster now, on top of the changes while you're in your super. So when you're in your super and pop it, you're going to be going really fast with it, like almost 33% faster with it. However, just at base, it's getting the 12%. Is it 12? No, it's 16%. Brain farting here, sorry. But 16% flight speed while in your Shiver Strike, and decreases the downward influence of gravity while in flight by 18%, so you should be able to knock an enemy that's in the air in front of you rather than trying to knock them and going under them and completely whiffing your melee. Howl of the Storm. Increased width of freezing cone versus players by 31%. I'm grateful for this change. I've played the Hoarfrost Z with that fragment on, and was playing melee made crystals, barricade made crystals, and grenade made crystals. So getting a bigger freeze rate on that will just make it easier for me to ramp crystals on someone, and then blow a single one up and chain react it all. I love doing that. The Frost Pulse is now going to be giving you a melee lunge boost, and that's in addition to you cast your barricade, not barricade, wrong class. You cast your rift, you freeze all nearby enemies when you cast your rift, and then your next melee in the next 1.2 seconds will have that extra lunge range to get straight to them. This is just going to be something for really PvP. In PvE, you're going to have other things like Vesper to instantly detonate them. Though in PvP, I already know I'm going to have a blast with this, because you're going to be able to pop your rift, freeze them, Vesper's detonation goes off, and then your melee hits, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be a one-hit combo. And there's nothing they can do about it. And then light subclass changes. For the Titan, Seismic Strike, Shield Bash, and Hammer Strike. Sorry to all of you shoulder charge spammers, you won't be able to do that anymore. Every time you use your ability, if it is not hitting a target, it will consume 15% of your melee charge and make you have to wait for it to refill before you can use it again. So you can still use it to reposition, but you're no longer going to be able to use it for mobility spam. But for those of you guys that use it offensively and don't use it as mobility spam, every one of these shoulder charge abilities is getting their cooldowns reduced from the 114s to 120 second cooldowns to 91 seconds. And I was looking away from the screen and realized I got those numbers wrong. Feel free to smack me for that. Base cooldowns were not 114s to 120s. It's 101s to 114s. I don't know where I got 120 from. Oh well. But based on your strength stat, it's going to be going down to a 7-second cooldown instead of 17. It will be fun. And that's going to be for movement stuff. It'll make it so that instead of the 17-second at 0, no, it will be 17 seconds that you have to wait for it to be able to use it again for movement. Whereas for movement, it will be 7 seconds at 100 strength to get it back up again. So this isn't the total cooldowns. This will be with that 15% charge gone. That's how long you'll have to wait before using it again as a mobility. So you still got some mobility in there, but it's not going to be anywhere near as spammable. Misunderstood that first time reading around, so that actually taught me something new. And then knockout, lunge range reduced from 6.5 to 5.5. This was making it so that you could go at ridiculous speeds with the ballistic slam. It was terrifying with Dune Marchers. You rounded a corner, accidentally went close to an ally, and a Dune Marcher came around. You died. So, knockout change, I'm glad to see. And then in PvE, the basic melee will be doing more damage when it's available. Shield throws, impact damage increased, PvE and PvP, and increase the consistency of finding and adjusting initial trajectory towards a new target after a bounce. This is basically going to make it so that the cone behind your target is widened for the tracking. Because say you have two enemies right next to each other and throw your shield, it will hit one of them. But if that other enemy is too much further ahead than it, and you hit the one in the back, it wouldn't come forward to them. Now it's increasing that cone to where it probably will affect something that's in an angle in front of them if you hit the one behind them. So I wish I had gameplay to show you what I mean, but my cord still hasn't come. Don't know what the deal with that is. But yeah. Throwing hammer. The bunk hammer has gotten homing now. Now, I'm thinking the homing won't be something like Final Warnings homing, where you can literally decide on the target you want to home in on, and back behind a corner and shoot around the corner and hit them. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be that powerful, but I think it's going to be like Osteo level homing, where it can go in a slight arc to where you're wanting it, but it won't be able to round corners. Which I'm fine with. One of my biggest peeves about that throwing hammer was the fact that in PvE content, you threw that at something like the freaking. Uh, it's an overload champion. Well, the Minotaurs or the overload champion for the Fallen. Yeah, the Fallen. They can literally just teleport away and make it so that your melee completely misses them. And if they're by a ledge, that hammers into oblivion. That homing should make it so that it kind of wounds about and may hit an object, whereas before it would have went straight into the void, as well as making it so that those things that are just constantly sidestepping, like harpies, you can throw your hammer at it at a long distance and not have it where it just walks to the side and your hammer misses. Your hammer will now be able to home in on them. So I'm excited for that. Sol Invictus for Titans. The sunspots that it creates for PvP will be increasing from 17 damage to 22 damage. So all the more incentive to stay out of sunspots. They're going to hurt you worse, and they already hurt pretty bad. The snare bomb weaken in PvE has doubled in duration. Proximity explosive knife has had its PvP viability reduced in detonation damage, but impact damage has been increased to compensate. Weighted throwing knife, for you mouse and keyboard players out there, you're going to have a bigger zone that you can hit for your precision hit, and the longer your knife is in the air, the bigger that cone gets. That second part, I am very, very afraid of with the Arthur's Embrace exotic and the change they are getting. Because that's going to make accurate precision final blows a lot more common, and the Arthur's Embrace already boosted the accuracy cone, but also made it so that it would bounce the knife twice. Actually, it might just be added an extra bounce to it. I think the weighted knife already bounced. But the fact of the matter is, you're able to just throw that around a corner where you see an enemy's name tag, and you can bounce that off walls, and it would eventually home in on them. This is going to increase the precision rate. And the other thing about it, PvE, and the change coming to that exotic. As you chain your precision hits with your weapons or your knives, you're getting energy back for your knives. So if you got a precision kill on an ad, you could get your knife back. But in a boss fight, you wouldn't be getting it back. However, with the Arthur's Embrace change that's coming, it's in my mind going to be about the same level as Starfire Protocol is pre-nerf. Because you're going to be able to chain those precision hits. Every time you chain one, you're getting energy back to your knife, and then you can throw that and it's doing damage, and you're just going to be able to cycle it as if the only difference is, rather than a fusion grenade, it's a throwing knife. And rather than empowered damage, it's precision damage. So, all you knife users out there, you're going to be enjoying that quite a bit. And Gunpowder Gamble has gotten 2 buffs. Not only is it giving 2 fragment slots now, it's getting its cooldown activation for its little grenade throw reduced from 12 seconds to 6 seconds. So, all y'all who enjoy that, enjoy that. The Incinerator Snap has been fixed. Apparently, the middle projectile was the only one doing cleave damage, and the other 4 projectiles were doing impact damages, but were not doing the cleave. They have fixed that, so it will all be doing cleave. So all you Sunbracer users, yeah, you're going to enjoy this. You may not need the Heat Rises Phoenix Dive to apply the scorch stacks needed that would inflict the ignition. And it's, yeah, Incinerator Snap is going to be hitting like a truck now. So much so they had to nerf the damage to deal with the changes that are coming with it, because it's going to be doing a lot. The Ball Lightning got a 30% damage buff in PvE, and rather than knocking targets back now, it will be, well, it will still have a little knockback, but the Lightning Strike will now be able to more consistently hit things rather than blow the enemy away and not have the Lightning Strike hit them. So that's a nice change. The Chaos Accelerant, Scatter Grenade, is going to be homing in easier. It's going to have a little longer duration before it starts to send them out. And it's going to make it so that the environment shouldn't be detonating the trackers. The trackers should be able to find players, and unless they go behind cover, it shouldn't just hit whatever's near them and instantly detonate, not giving them the chance to go and try to track them. At least in my understanding, that's the change there. And then the Magnetic Grenade handheld Supernova is getting a increased time that you can charge it and hold it, but that kind of goes to the damage resist that comes with it. Makes it so you can hold it longer going around a corner, get it out there, and take less damage while doing so for a longer duration. Lightning Surge, I knew about this bug. I'm kind of sad it's getting nerfed because the video that I made, the Holy Bleep, this Warlock build is my new main for its Arc subclass. Yeah, it was abusing Lightning Surge a lot. And in PvP, the only change I would make, throw on Claws of Ahamkara. Actually, isn't that the... I think that might have been the build. I can't fully remember right now. It's been a minute since I uploaded that. But in PvP, throw on Claws of Ahamkara. Go and do that. And you could clear an entire zone with one melee. And then anything coming up to that zone, you could go and do the next melee and be able to just get away with another melee. And you could kill an entire team. And it was stupid. And I'm surprised it took them this long to fix it. But yeah, that's finally getting fixed, so that build may be less viable now. The Scorch stacks, This is basically just saying that in PvE and PvP, it will take longer for the scorch stacks to fall off, so PvP players, we all know Scorch won't kill the target, but that longer duration that it stays on them, you'll be able to better depict where they're going to be going and get ready for the next engagement. And you PvE players, this means that you're going to have more of a gap if you're using something like a weapon that applies Scorch and have two other things that are auto-loading. This should make it so that you can go to both auto-loading weapons, get it all off, and get back to your weapon in time that the Scorch stacks have not fallen off. Which is great, because that's going to mean more consistent ignitions, which means more consistent burst, which just means more damage. The Jolt has gotten a nerf, because Jolt was exceedingly powerful in single target damage. It has been breaking a lot of things, because the Jolt being applied with Grenade was making it so that you could damage a boss a lot, but if you got any ads around him, it was doing so much damage to that boss that it was chunking him a lot more than it should have. And then reduce the scalar against combatants, major combatants in PvE by 20%, and that's actually for the exact reason I was just saying. It was doing a lot more damage to bosses than intended. And the speed booster just made it more consistent. And yeah, that's the TWAB. So, if you enjoyed it, like it. If you have any exotic combinations with some of these changes that you think would be fun, when I get the chance to, I'll get to them. But I won't know about them until you comment it. And if you want to, you can subscribe. And I know I'm copying this from someone, or numerous someones, but it's always an option to unsubscribe. So if you just want notifications for my next video, subscribe, turn notifications on. And for now, that's Willis's World. Out.